Hey there, marketing students. Professor Walters here, and today we are going to be talking about what I wish I would have known when I finished school. Because I know when you go to college, you learn a lot, right? I mean, you can remember and you've memorized who led Rome in the year 33 BCE, and you know the quadratic equation, and you know that how to do some accounting stuff. Like you've learned some things, but school doesn't teach you everything, and unfortunately, there's things that you really need to know to really succeed in life, or at least to be okay in life. And these are some things that I've seen over the years that I really wish I would have known when I came out of school, and I try to share with my students. So, what we're going to do today, in lieu of having class, we're going to be online, and I'm going to be going through this because these are things I think you should really know. All right. Audiovisual, nice to see you. I know I don't expect too many of my students to actually show up and watch this, though I really hope they will, because these are things you really need to know. And I'll be honest with you, it will make life a lot easier. Okay, so with no further ado, let's get started. So, like I said, what I wish I would have known in school, always an important topic. But honestly, one of the things where I see people make a mistake is we start living, hand to mouth. Basically, everything I make when I get my job, because you're going to get a good job. I mean, you go to University of Illinois, you're going to have a good job. Gee's business, like you're going to get a good job. You're going to be paid well. But we start living in a way that we're living like we did when we lived with our parents, right? And so your parents have been working for 20, 30 years. So they've built up that credit, they've built up that money and that position, and they're getting a lot more than you're going to start out with. And so what happens is a lot of people start trying to live like they did when they're in high school, and you can't afford that. That's why you broke students, I mean, you don't have a lot of money when you start working. And so one of the things that's really important is to really always make sure you're keeping some money. Like have something. You need some fallback money. I say, have $1,000 in the bank. Why always have $1,000 in the bank? Well, if you got a car, believe me, if anything goes wrong with your car, it's going to cost you $1,000. Oh, you have a water leak in your bathroom in your rental. Guess what? The plumber will come, but the plumber might not, want to get paid by the landlord. You might have to pay it and then pay it back, get it paid back later. You need to have this cash because you know what? I've had TAs where my time at Illinois where dude was roller skating with his dog. Dog stopped, face plant, had to have emergency stuff. Oh, yeah, we need $1,000 for the start of the surgery. So you need to have something there. And the thing is, though, you don't just want to say, "Oh, I'm just going to keep some money, in the bank. It'll be fine." No, have a separate account. Have that savings account that you can save up for. Maybe use it to save up for a vacation or a car, or whatever. But you have something that's out of your reach. Not something you're like, well, I want to go with my buddies this weekend and have some drinks. It's okay. Well, you do that enough, that savings disappear. But I know when you're first starting out, you're like, Mark, I'm a broke student. I have no money. So I don't know how the heck I'm supposed to save up $1,000. Well, there's some things you can do. One of the best things I remember the first time I actually did had a real job. The real paychecks are nice. And then I had to, pay my taxes, but then I got my IRS rebate. So like April, when you get whenever you do get your IRS rebate, that nice little bundle of cash that comes back to you, put that away, save that. Because here's the thing: is companies know that people get that money in March, April, right there for their tax returns. That's why you see all these deals. So use your tax return to buy a car or your down payment on something. Don't just save it. Just save it for that rainy day, because those rainy days do come. Another thing you can think about is, I mean, it sounds silly. You have the, try not to spend month. I know it's like, well, how can I not spend? Well, instead of going out to eat, instead of going out and doing the entertainment stuff, maybe stay at home and entertain yourself and just stay in so you can cut down on the spending. And that can save up, because you'd be surprised not going out, instead of going out, Friday, Saturday night, only going out Friday night. Or taking a couple weeks off and go see your parents. Hey, they always pay for the food. Save that money up, and you'll be surprised how quick that can save up. But also, I think one of the things is look at all the stuff you don't use anymore. I mean, you got a PlayStation 4, you got a PlayStation 5, you got a PlayStation 3, and a PlayStation 2. Which ones do you actually still play? Throw that stuff up on eBay. Well, maybe not Craigslist. If you do Craigslist, make sure you do it where you like meet them in like the police parking lot, okay? But you have this extra cash that you could be getting. Do you really need 5 guitars if you don't play anymore? I mean, if you play guitar, you need 5 guitars. But be honest with yourself. Sometimes it's time to purge, get rid of those things if someone else wants it, because $10 here, $30 there, that adds up. Same thing with your money when you're spending like $5 for that Starbucks and $10 for that sandwich, it adds up. So you got to think about these things. Okay. Another thing, if you want to just look at it in general, is trim back. We talk about cutting the cord, not having cable. I mean, I haven't had cable for 12 years. No joke. I have not had cable for 12 years. Have not missed it. I just have internet. So internet is, $70 a month, whereas cable is $200 a month. Maybe you decide that's not for you. I mean, it sounds silly, but these are things you got to think about in terms of saving that money up and not touching it, okay? Because this is for emergencies. So don't use that savings for non-emergencies, all right? So that's one thing. I've seen too many friends that had to come and like, hey, can I borrow some money? I'm like, I get paid in 2 weeks, but I got to pay this thing off now. You don't want that. You want to have that cushion just to fall back on. Usually they'll say it's like, oh, have 3 to 6 months of savings of your income so you can get by. I'm like, look, you're coming out of school. You're not going to get 6 months of savings when you just started working. Okay, so that's one thing there. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, budgeting my finances. Oh, yes, this is how you end up not being able to save. And it really comes down to knowing. Perfect. Claire puts out perfectly. Our TV came with tons of channels and no TV package required. Yes, if you get smart TVs like Roku TVs or Samsung smart TVs, you'll get Pluto TV. You'll get like the DIY network. You'll get, I actually watched This Old House. Yeah. Actually, you could find a Walter's World app on there probably too. And there's so many free things you can get on there that you don't need it. My dad, who I love him, not the most tech savvy guy in the world, somehow got 1,000 channels onto our TV. I have no idea how he did it. He doesn't know what he did. He's like, I found my news channel. I'm like, So you can find ways to save. So good point, Claire. Thank you. But really, when you're budgeting your finances, I mean, yes, it's just looking at what's coming in and what's going out. All right. But the thing is when you're looking at what's going out, you have to realize there's a lot of stuff that if you're a college student, that's already kind of getting covered. Your tuition and your parents, they probably are covering your insurance, right? And your food might be included with your sorority, and your other, like, there's a lot of little things you don't think about because when you rent your apartment, that it's the rent, and then it's the electrical, and then there's the water, and then there's the gas, and then there's the cable. Those things add up. And also insurance for your car, insurance for your phone bill. Oh my gosh. This thing is my most expensive. Well, aside from my mortgage, this is my most expensive bill every month. It's like I've got 3 kids, 3 people. Well, there's 4 people now with 4 phones. So you got to take all these things in. And what's crazy is you don't realize what you spend. It's kind of like you don't realize what you eat. Maybe on my case, if you actually just for 1 week list everything you spend on everything, even if it's like, oh, I just put a quarter in to get a gumball, put it down. You start to see it's like, how the heck am I spending all this money? You want to track all that. All right. And then what you want to think about is when you're looking at budgeting, when you have all these things you're spending on, divided it up into what is a want versus a need. Like a want is something you'd like to have. A need is something you have to do. So like need, what do I need? Well, I need to pay my mortgage. I need to pay my gas bill. I need to pay electrical because I want to have electricity. Like I need to do that. What are the wants? Well, my dirty little things. I like to go to Barnes and Noble and get a broccoli cheddar quiche and a latte. Yeah, chai tea latte. That's like $12. Or my Culver's addiction, as some of you know about. Like I want to have those. Those are some things you can kind of cut back on. Okay, to how to save some money. But think about that. Divide that up there so you know what you really have to be spending versus what you're kind of spending for fun. Okay. Now, when you're looking at that, what you're spending, what you have to realize is your essentials, the things like those needs, they should be covered by 60% of your income. Okay. If you cannot cover your essentials by that 60%, that means you're spending too much. So maybe you need to look for a cheaper phone plan. Maybe you need to look for a cheaper place to live. Okay. Like these are things you really have to think about because that's also on the other way. If you're getting a raise, you're making more money, you're trying to figure out, so where could I move? Eventually maybe you want to have a family. There's a special somebody out there for you, right? Maybe you want to have kids, that's everyone's got their own thing, but you want to look and see, it's like, hey, how much could we afford? This helps you get an idea. It's like, oh, like sometimes you realize, wow, I could get a much bigger place. You don't have to, but it's something you want to think about. So consider that. All right. Also, what I want you to always track also is what's coming in. All right. And what's important is that what's going out. Obviously, that's what people mostly think about the budget. But hey, what's coming in? Where's my money coming in? Because now you're going to have obviously your job with your paycheck there, but then also maybe you start investing. You have some dividend incomes or stock portfolio incomes. Maybe you have a side hustle. I love my YouTube stuff. I mean, that's not a side. It's my hobby, really. But maybe you have something on the side you can do. Think about all those papers you had to write back in the day, for all your classes. Maybe you put those up on LinkedIn and people want to use those. I mean, I've sold some of my papers, not to like students to write, but like to articles and stuff. So like we went on Nerd Wallet, that's helped grow us and things like that. So look at those things, but take it all in. Even if like, hey, grandma sends me a couple $100, every month or so, you can factor that in just so you have a better understanding of where your money is. Okay. Because the problem is if you don't know how much you really have coming in and don't really know how much is going out, that's where you can have budget issues. That's where you end up like, oh, I can't pay my rent. How did this happen? That's why it's really important. And this is one I've seen so many of my friends make this mistake. They did not budget when they came out of school and they started to live like they were their parents. And I'm like, dude, your parents are from like one of the nice suburbs of Chicago and your mom's a CEO and your dad's, a lawyer and they make a lot of money. You do not. Your parents' money is not your money until they're dead, which I'll talk about later. Okay, so something I want you to kind of think about. Yes, Gabe, antennas are great as well. I love local channels down here at home. Yeah. My thing is I have a curse. Every antenna I get will get no channels. Like when I used to live in Champaign and I could see the tower from WCIA and I could not get that channel. I'm like, I could see, like, I'm holding the antenna up, it doesn't get it. Like my house I have now, our ground floor, we get the WCIA, and I'm like 20 miles away. We get that, nothing else from the antennas. But our TV upstairs that our kids use, they get like 25 channels. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, thanks, Gabe. Next up, how to have a handle on my career. This is a tough one, especially when you're first starting out. You're not sure what you should do. How can I become the CEO? I don't want to look like I want to take over. Look, no one expects you to be the CEO day one. All right, but you got to build towards that. So we have to think about is how am I going to have a handle on my career? And one thing you have to realize is taking risk is part of the job. Like taking a risk on a project or on working with people. You want to make sure you're taking risks, but take calculated risks. Don't just be stupid. Oh no, I'm going to be the one that's going to sell the refrigerators in Minnesota, like whatever. You're like, get something more, be realistic with what you can do. You got to take risks so you get noticed. It's kind of like the students that are in class that never raise their hand. You have to risk that you might be wrong, that I'll notice you, but you don't want to risk it and just answer a question when you don't know the answer, right? Like you want to kind of play into those things. Another thing I think is important with your career is realize the worst case scenario is rarely as bad as you think. I mean, what's the worst thing that happens at work? Probably going to get fired. And guess what? No matter how great you are, you're probably going to get fired sometimes because that's how the world works. Budget cuts happen, downsizing happens, companies go out of business, and it's not you. Sometimes it just happens. I mean, it's not fair, but it does happen. But sometimes it's not the worst thing ever. Sometimes it gives you a chance to do something else. It gives you a chance to focus on something you really wanted to do. Okay, so don't think. I mean, that's one thing is people get really worried. Like, they're going to be downsizing this week, or I don't know if I'm going to have my job. It's okay to worry, but realize life will go on. There's other jobs out there. That's why you're always trying to build and improve yourself at your work, so you learn more. So wherever you go next, you can be even better. Okay. Another thing I think is important is don't personalize things at work that aren't personal. Don't think that someone's trying to get you unless they say they're trying to get you. Sometimes it's really easy to kind of assume, oh, that person wants my job or that person's trying to hold me back, when really all it was is they were constipated that day when they looked at you. I mean, it could be just that. So don't personalize it. Once you can unpersonalize things at work, it becomes a lot easier to talk to everybody, be friends with everybody, at least work well with everybody. And you realize that, look, it's a job. It's kind of like when you hear athletes talk, they say, look, this is a job. They get traded, right? They're like, hey, it's part of the job. They negotiate, the one player is holding out. You're like, hey, that's part of the job. That's how it works. And so they're not taking it personal like some of the teammates trying to hurt them. Oh, teammates looking out for themselves. That's how this works. It's okay. It's something that my teammates don't like me. My teammate doesn't like me. It's just, this is how it works. So don't personalize it if it's not personal. Okay. Also, just relax. Sometimes I have this problem. I need to relax more myself. Is sometimes just relaxing, taking that time to relax, to kind of refocus on what needs to happen, can make your life stress free. Because if you relax with work, it also helps you relax at home. And if you're relaxed at home, you're more relaxed at work. And it's a positive cycle. It also can be a negative cycle. If you're stressed at work, then you're stressed at home, and then it just gets tighter and tighter, and then you explode. So you got to be careful with that. Okay. I think another thing that's important if you're looking at, because let's be honest, you're going to a good school, you're going to get a job, you're going to be a leader one day, right? And one thing I think is important is always be generous with your praise, okay, and careful with your criticism, because people always will appreciate praise. Good job, thanks. But if you criticize people, people get very defensive. Even if it's like, Mark, you got some spinach in your teeth. Do I? You're like, you take it like, oh, like, yeah, I was just trying to help, Mark, because you had spinach there. You got to be careful. That's why, if I see somebody with spinach in their teeth, I don't go, hey, dude, you got spinach in your teeth. That's why you're like, you kind of look away. Do like a fun, just know that you're gonna have to balance the two. Okay. Now, one thing I think is also important, and I really want to stress, is realize that it's okay to quit your job. That is one of the craziest things to hear someone say, is it's okay to quit a job. Look, when you're interviewing for jobs, you might know already, like, I'll take the job, but I know it's not long term. That's how things are. And if you realize that this job isn't for me, get out. I mean, do you want to waste 5 years of your life in a job you don't like? No, move on. It's okay. I know companies, people will say, oh, it looks bad if you move jobs all the time. Like, hey, everyone moves jobs all the time. That's completely normal. Okay. This isn't the 1980s. This is the 1960s. This is the 2020s. Okay. So you will quit. You will, because if your job wants to keep you and someone else is offering you more money, then your boss can pay you that money. That's how it works. So don't be upset if you need to quit a job. Okay, whether it's for a better position or because it's not the right position for you, you want to do that. But if you are going to quit the job, try to have something else kind of lined up beforehand, or have that money saved up like I was talking about before. Okay. Oh, here's one that's coming. I wish I got into a house and not rented for so long. I thought I had reasons at the time, but they are flimsy reasons. Being self-employed, I thought it'd be too hard to get a mortgage. Yes, and Mark, we will be talking about buying a house here later on, because I have that in here as well. So but we're going to stick with our work kind of stuff. One thing I get from a lot of students is, Mark, how do I negotiate my raise? How do I get a raise? Like, I want to get more money on this first contract. Can I ask for more? I'm like, you can ask anything. If they say no and they're jerks about it, guess what? They're going to say no and be jerks about it later on too. So better to find that out early and go get a job or figure things out. And there's some things you need to realize when you're looking for a job. When you're looking for a raise, is how to ask for it. The biggest thing you have to do is build your case, and build your case over time. Because you have one good day, why should they give you a raise for that? But if you have like 2 months of being the best salesperson, maybe you do deserve more. Okay. And the thing is a lot of times what I've seen is people will ask for a raise because of something outside of work. Oh, we're building a new house. Oh, we're having another kid. Yes, those are reasons why you need money and you need a raise, but that is not a reason for your boss to give you a raise, because your boss has to justify giving you that money, because there's a finite amount of money they can give out. Okay, so you got to build a compelling reason, whether it's responsibilities you have, the money you've brought in, the differences you make, the awards you've won. Those are things that you're going to need to do. And also make sure you're building, like I said, build that case over time and remind your boss about it. Because believe me, when it comes to your performance review, they'll be like, oh, you did all these bad things. Oh, boss, remember all the good things I reminded you of? Remember all the awards I've gotten? Bing, bing, bing. Poets and quants, top 50 professors in the world. Yeah, remember that? Oh, right. Because your boss will selectively forget these things when it comes raise time. So you need to build that case. Another thing that's important is research your rate. Like, see what everyone else is making. Like, you can look on Glassdoor, you can talk to your friends. That's one of the big things. When people say, don't talk about what you make. No, that's so then they can keep wages down. Talk about it. See, if you see that your friends are making $20,000 more than you a year for the same job, one, maybe apply for a job at that company. But two, know that when you ask for it, say, look, our competition's paying this. So, I mean, that's why I know a number of places where they're like, oh, if you get an offer from another company, we'll match it. but you need to understand what's going on. Okay, you don't want to underestimate yourself. And one of the things I see what companies will use is like, oh, we've done so much for you. We have, we helped raise you, we helped grow you, we helped, turn you into the worker you are now. You owe us, be loyal to us. No, because they'd fire you like that, like seriously, like that. Boom. The loyalty thing is sadly a thing that's no longer around very much. There was the news the other day. This one person, there's a company that's in real estate, I think, and they fired 900 people over Zoom. They're like, oh, if you're on this Zoom call, you're fired. Yeah, because they're going to be doing a IPO, so they want to cut the books and all this kind of stuff, And so it's really, really horrible. Like, wait, you just cut 900. They didn't do anything wrong, but hey, they'll cut you like that. So you really seriously think there's other jobs out there. There's better cases for you. Maybe it's a good time to do that. Okay. Another thing I think is important if we're going to ask for a raise is make sure you time it right. You got to make sure, like, for example, my boss, they look at the raises in the summer. Like they have a committee that goes through stuff. If I ask for a raise right now, well, they're like, well, there's nothing we can do because we don't do the new contracts until the summer. And it doesn't go into effect until August. So I got to make sure I'm asking at the right time. Also, if you think about it, it's kind of like when you ask your parents for stuff. If it's a good day and their team has won, like the Bears just won the Super Bowl after the Cubs won the World Series and after the Bulls have won the championship, then it's like, hey, can we get a PlayStation 5, Dad or Mom? Yes, of course. But if the Bears get destroyed by Green Bay, like they probably will this weekend, maybe not a good time to ask. Same thing with here. Make sure you time it at the right time. Okay. And then also sometimes there's not money involved. Sometimes it's good to prepare for a plan B. Now, maybe it's not getting more money. Maybe it's, hey, could work pay for my phone? I mean, think about it. If I'm not paying my phone bill every month, I mean, that's saving you what, $100, $150 a month? Well, 150 times 12. Well, shoot, that's like $2,000 right there. I could be saving. That's $2,000 that you're not spending. So that's like getting a raise of $2,000. Health insurance, extra days off. I mean, come on. Time is one of the things that's invaluable. Oh, I get an extra 3 days vacation. So think about other things you could ask for. Okay. So best ways for someone to learn to copyright and patent original ideas. That's not in this topic. I'm going over some other stuff, but we can talk about that in another video or later on. We do Q&A. So next up, what to remember from my first interview. So if you are going to be interviewing, because that does happen, and I think one thing is really important about interviewing is you need to realize is that job searches come at different times. Whether if you're a marketing major, an engineering major, a accounting major, each industry hires at different paces. Some hire 6 months out, some hire 6 days out. So that's a really important thing to know. So that's why it's important to always be kind of prepared. And when you're looking at interviews, and when you're looking at an interview, always be prepared. Read as much as you can up on that company, on that industry. So when you go and talk to them, it shows that you really care. It shows that you really are a part of this. Okay. So that's one thing. But also, I think one thing a lot of people forget about is when you're interviewing at a job, that job's also interviewing for you. Think about it. This is a job you're going to have in the next 2, 5, 20 years of your life. Don't you make sure it's right for you? Listen to those questions. Okay. If they're like, oh, hey, how would you deal with 100%, travel? Or how would you deal with 100 hours a week working? Why would you ask that question? What's going on here? So think about these things. Also, what's important is listen to the interviewer. I know it sounds silly, but you really want to listen to them because it shows respect, but also you'll start to get a better idea of the kind of questions they really are asking and the kind of answers they really want. All right. Also, when you're interviewing, this is one thing I see people do. It's like, oh, I got an offer. I'm in the second round. I'm sure going to get it. I'm going to cancel my other interviews. No, you always keep interviewing. If you already have a job, if someone comes and talks to you about another position, listen to the interview. If you're happy with your job, it's always good to know what your options are because you never know when there's going to be a Zoom call that you're on and they fire everybody. So always keep interviewing and don't burn any bridges. Even if you get the job, you have a job, you accepted it, you're like, hey, I really appreciate this. I really enjoyed our interview process, but I've accepted a position at this place. But hopefully we'll work together another day, something. All right. Another thing I think is really important when you're interviewing is to relax. Remember, these are people you're going to be working with every day. So you might be like, oh, they're going to be my boss. Yeah, but your boss you have to work with. So relax, because if you can't relax with them, then it's not going to be really fun to work with them. So think about that, okay? And some of the things that really can help you in the interviewing process is really finding some common ground with that interviewer. I mean, that's why you're going to get the name of your interviewer. Do a little Facebook stalking or LinkedIn stalking. See where they went to school, see what their interests are. So you have something to talk about so you can kind of find a connection with them. Okay. That can really help. I know for me, when I was one of the jobs I got in Portugal, I went to Illinois for my undergrad and I was in Portugal. And one of the places I was working at had a bunch of professors who did their PhD at Illinois. So I wrote them. I'm like, ILL, hey, and they were right on. And so that helped me get in to find the real interviews. So find that connection between them. And I think one thing a lot of people mess up is they don't practice those hard questions. You know they're going to ask you what your biggest strengths are. You know they're going to ask you your biggest weaknesses. You also know they're going to ask you how you're going to help us win, blah, blah, blah. You got to have a good answer for those. If you don't, they're like, wait, you knew these questions were coming and you didn't prepare? It makes you look bad. Okay, so be prepared is the key thing. All right. Now, another thing I think you need to think about is when you're leaving school. Like I know students like to say, I have no time. I have a student who's sent me like 50 emails the last 2 days that literally is just trying to do math. I'm like, it's 9 divided by 10 times 200. That's 180. Like, you're really asking me if that's, I'm like, oh. That kind of stuff, your boss will hate you for it. Like, your boss will fire you, because if I have to think for you, it's not going to go well. So one of the things you have to realize is when you go to work is a lot more is going to be on you. Okay. And one of the things is when you have a lot more stuff going on, that means you have a lot less time. Okay. So how do you manage your time? Because when you're in college, yeah, you got 16 credit hours, right? So that means you got what, 20 hours of class? That's a half a full-time job. And let's be honest, you're not always doing homework every day. So you'll never have more free time than you have right now in college. Okay. So all of a sudden you got work, and you got, if you're taking the metro in to the city every day, you got that time that's there. Time disappears. So you really have to learn how to manage that time. Okay. So one thing is you got to anticipate your workload and plan accordingly. Okay. Plan out that schedule, because I know in college, you might not know this, but professors know that you basically just study the night before. It doesn't work that way at work. You got to block these things out, like kind of divide things up. Be like, okay, Monday I'm going to do, project 1. On Tuesday I'll do project 2 and 3. And then you plan it out. That's going to help you do better with getting the workload done. That's why you want to kind of break it up. And then when you accomplish some of those little things, it feels like you're getting more accomplished. All right. Now, I know a lot of people do a to-do list, but you want to make a daily to-do list, but just leaving it to 3 things. What are the 3 most important things I have to do today? Because think about it. If you have the 3 most important things to do and you get those 3 important things done, you've accomplished the day. Now, you might have 20 things you have to do, but what are the 3 most important? Get those 3 done. And then what's the next 3? That's going to help you manage that time better. Okay. And I know it's tough, but procrastination is your enemy. All right. Don't procrastinate. Get on it. And the thing is, it's tough changing that attitude. I mean, if you think back, remember when you were in high school, you were up at like 5 a.m. to make sure your hair looked good and you had the right outfit on, and you went to practice in the morning or band before school at like 6, and then you had school from like 7 till 3, and then you had swim practice afterwards, and then you had all your homework, and you had a job. You got all that stuff done. Now you're in college. You're like, oh, I've got 2 classes today. I don't know if I can make it. You need to get back to that don't procrastinate, get things done attitude you had in high school. It's tough, but getting past that procrastination is a real key to helping manage your time. And the thing is, as you get older or you get more advanced in the company, you'll see that you have more chances to delegate the work. If you have people that can help you, use that. Like, I use editors for doing most of my editing for my videos now, because they help me get that. So then I have more time to make more videos. I have more time to see my students. I have more time to travel, So you want to think about these things, okay? So going back to the interview thing, Claire's asking, could you touch on job interviews versus grad school interviews and how to prepare accordingly? I would say there's very similar in terms of the preparation part, okay? Job interviews, you're probably going to find more stuff on a business. I would search them on Google. I would read up their Wikipedia page. I would go to their website. I would look at all their social medias and see things there. And then I would search for them online and see what competitors come up and learn about them. So you have an idea of who they're working against and who some of their big clients are. That can help you out there, and that gives you a good feel. Now, grad school interviews are less, I find them less busy, like less stuff. What you want to do with your grad school one, it really focuses on, I would really learn about the school, see some of their professors and look up the professors like in the area you're going to go into, look at what they're researching and then talk about how that's an interest of yours. So like, oh, you know that, oh, like, oh, I know that, Professor Scott is world renowned in his supply chain. I thought it'd be interesting to work with him. That gives you something connected there. But also you want to talk about your story and how, because here's the thing is grad school is helping you go forward, right? But a job interview is you're trying to help the company go forward. So it's a different kind of perspective of who's important. So make sure in your grad interviews talk about how the program will help you reach your goals and what your goals are and why it's a perfect fit. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit, Claire. Next up, how to network. Oh, yes. Networking is always important. Doesn't matter. I mean, if you're 5 years old or 55 years old or 105 years old, how to network and meet people is going to be key. That is how you're going to get your jobs. It's not, well, your career fairs you go to, those are nice, but you're networking because you know the university you're at. But later on is who you know. You know the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know really counts. Because those personal connections help you find a new salesperson. They help you find your special someone, right? Also, I mean, I know with my jobs, my networks helped me get my jobs. The fact that I was in the Illinois network helped me get a job in Illinois, right? And it helped me get the job in Portugal because I used my Illinois network to find people that went to Illinois. So you have these things here. What you realize is like 70% of jobs are generated from networking. Somebody's telling you, but we have a position that's opening up. I mean, I know when we are looking for new professors, there's like, hey, we're going to have this position open. Does anybody know anybody that might be a good candidate? And so we go and tell our friends that might be good candidates to apply. Now, they might not get the job, but at least it's, hey, this is someone that might work. So think about it that way. All right. And the thing is people who you can help and that could help you. And so that same thing is when your friend needs help, you could be networking. But networking is not always easy. So you got to remember a few things. One, we just say link. Link is a good acronym for doing better at networking. So the L is learn. Learn about the needs of others and learn about the needs of yourself. Because if you know the needs of others, then you know what they can be helped with, right? Okay. And so, but also you learn about them and how they can help people. So you might see that, I have a friend who needs peanut butter and I have a friend who makes peanut butter. Oh, hey, boom. They need a client. We can make that connection because making those connections and networking, that is a superpower. Like people, think about it. I have friends of mine who are still love me because I introduced them to their eventual spouse. I didn't even remember that I introduced them, but they're like, oh, thank you. Their son is junior. Is like, oh, thank you for introducing my parents. I'm like, what? He's like, I wouldn't be here without you. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then my buddy's like, yeah, Mark, you introduced us to each other at the beach that one time. I'm like, oh yeah. I totally didn't remember that, but it was one of those things. So, but learn about people. That's going to be one thing. Another thing is you got to invest time and energy to develop a strong relationship. This is not, I only said a happy birthday now. This is, I saw an article that was something that related to one of my students. Hey, that's really cool. I'm going to share that with them. I'm going to get to know them. So you have to invest the time and energy for that. And within that, you're nurturing that relationship. So you're showing that you're caring for them. You're developing these things over time. And that goes into the keeping side of a network. Okay. You don't need to constantly be seen, but you need to be within their mind. That's why you have like reminder advertising sometimes for like Coke. They're like, hey, remember, like we're here, buy us. You just put those things out there. Because sometimes you're like, oh, I totally forgot. Like last night I was trying to think of a place for take my parents to dinner. And I'm like, we ended up driving by a place. I'm like, I totally forgot that place was there. We should have, let's just go there. If you're not keeping top of mind, you kind of get forgotten. Okay. So something to think about. All right. Now, how to say no gracefully. This is one that's always tough because your boss asks you to do something or someone else asks you to do something. You don't want to be a jerk and say, no, I don't do your work for you. But you have to realize if you're a new employee, people know that you're new and you're trying to impress. So there's people at work that will sometimes kind of pawn off some of their work on you. You have your own work to do. Okay. Now, sometimes you got to help, sometimes you don't have to, but there's a way you can say no. Maybe it doesn't always work, but you can say no gracefully. And it's called acknowledge, decline, and offer. So, one, you want to acknowledge that you heard what they asked for. Because a lot of times someone just says no right away. You're like, you didn't even listen to what I wanted to say. You're not even listening to me. And that upsets them. So, if they ask you to do something, someone comes and, hey, Mark, could you put these figures in a table for me tomorrow? I'd really appreciate it. So they're asking me to put picture, an Excel spreadsheet together. So I don't just say no. I say, so you need me to put figures in a presentation for tomorrow that you need. Is that what you're asking? I'm acknowledging. I've listened to them. So right there, like, oh, they're listening. They heard what I said. They repeated it back to me. Maybe they will do this for me. Hey, so they're already in a positive mood, but you still don't want to do that, or you don't have time to do it. And so what you do is you decline with a reason, just one reason, just one. You say, hey, I can do it, but I can't do it right now. I got to go pick up my kids from school. You don't need to have the 900 excuses. I mean, let's be honest. Have you ever asked anybody out for a date and they're like, oh, I'm washing my hair. My dog is sick. My homework isn't done. My nails are still drying. You're like, all right, you don't want to go out with me. I got it. Like the more reasons you give, the less believable it is. So you just give the one, hey, one reason. I got to pick up my kids today, so I can't do it. Done. Now you've declined with a reason, one reason. But then remember, you want to look like you want to help, then offer an alternative. Okay. I don't have time to do this today. If you want to help, like, look, hey, I can't do it today because I got to pick them up, but I mean, I can help you tomorrow afternoon because I've got some free time then to work with this with you. Then you're off that trip. Say, look, I said I'd do it. It just has to be on my schedule, right? And so that's something you can do because a lot of times when people are asking you to do stuff at work, it's like last minute things. So it could be, they'll try to find, they might be, I'll try to find somebody else. Okay, well, you did say, you said no, but it sounded like you said yes. So you'll keep it on the good side. Now, it doesn't always work, but it is a way to kind of remember maybe how to say no. Now, getting to Mark Finley, who was on here earlier, asking about knowing about buying a house. Look, buying a house can be a good investment, depending where you live, and the thing is, rent. I mean, it's up to you. Because if you buy a house, you have the property taxes, and you got the upkeep you have to take care of and the insurance. But if you rent, a lot of that's not your problem, so that could be helpful. But you have to think about it in terms of a few things. One, if you're going to buy a house, how long you really plan to live in that house. If you're only going to be there for 2 or 3 years, it's probably not worth it to buy, just because the cost you're going to, the closing cost, all those things, you might not make it up. Now, if you're living in California where you saw housing prices skyrocketing, yeah, then it's not going to be a big deal. But if you have a place that only has slight growth in housing prices, you might be losing money. So it might just be better to rent. But if you're thinking about it, like, I have students now. I have 2 old students of mine that just announced they got engaged. I was very happy to see that, Danielle, and Michael. Oh, my brain's free. My brain's fried right now. I feel like a jerk because they're in all my classes. Well, anyway, so like thinking about it, like, yeah, if I'm gonna buy my house, like, are we buying this house just for the 2 of us, or is this a house we're gonna stay in until we get to the real money and we can buy like a big house for when we have kids? You want to think about what you're trying to do and how long you're going to be there for. It's like I'm at the age now. It's like I bought my house because look, I'm going to retire here. My kids are going to be in high school and college here, so I need space because 2 boys that favorite activity is to beat the crap out of each other need some space. So I actually put extra insulation between the floors so I don't have to hear them fighting downstairs. It's all in good fun, but you got to think about that. So think about how long you're going to be there, because that might be one of the things. Like, look, it's a little bit high in our price range, but if we're going to live there for 10 years, in 10 years' time, we have 10 years of raises. So maybe it's not as bad. So that's something to think about. Also, you want to look at, how do I say this? Also look and see if it's a good time or a bad time to buy. Like right now, housing prices have gone through the roof. You're like, oh man, but you have to figure we got inflation coming. The market crashes, housing prices might come down. You have to see if it's a good time or bad time to buy and sell, because there are such things as buyer's markets and seller's markets. Like if it's a seller's market, people like it's take it or leave it. But if it's a buyer's market, that means you can say, yeah, I like your house, but I'm going to pay you, 10% below asking, and you got to repaint this room, and like they just want to get rid of it. So that's going to influence where you're at and what you can do. But also, you have to think about is, are you financially prepared to buy a house? They say have 20% down. Well, you don't actually have to have 20% down, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. I mean, you can get loans for like 5% down. You just pay, you pay PMI, okay, the mortgage insurance on there. And once you get to 20%, it disappears. So you could do that. But the thing is, you want to can I do the down payment? Can I remember we talked about the first thing, like know your budget? Let's like how much money can I spend? You don't want to go to your top, but having a rough idea is like, look, the max I can do with mortgage is this. But remember, mortgage, then you also have property tax that adds onto there, and insurance. Maybe you could be spending $1,000 a year just on your home insurance. Yeah, so you have to factor that in, which comes out to $100 a month or something like that. So just want to think about those things. Now, when you are looking at the house you want to have a wish list. Okay, if you're going to buy houses, go watch House Hunters and realize those people are unrealistic and they have way too much money and no one knows how the hell they can pay for $1 million house for being I'm a gift card putter upper. I mean, it's crazy how the houses that are there. But have your wish list of what you really want, but this is what I really have to have and what I can kind of do without, because you're not going to get everything you want unless you want to pay through the nose. Okay, so have that list and know what you can give up, what you can. Like I know for me, I'm like, look, I got to be someplace with good schools. My kids are in school. That is super important to me. Wherever I live after that, where I move after this, my kids will be out of school. It's a whole different ballgame, but I need to have this. I want to have a yard for them to play in. I want to have a good school system, and I want to have other families nearby. Have those things so you know what to kind of look for. Okay. But the thing is when you're looking at buying a house, you really have to do your own research. Okay. And that's for all things. If you're looking for a mortgage rate, don't just go to the bank you grew up with. Like, see what their rate's going to be and what their fees are. There's the key, because a lot of them just give you the same rate. It's the fees they charge in there. Go and check out a few banks, because you might see that, hey, this one actually might save me $2,000 or $3,000. Yeah, I know one I went to. They're like, hey, actually, because we had our 20% down. They're like, no, do 15%. We'll get the PMI because I can get a lower interest rate for you, and then you just pay off the PMI the first month, and you're saving yourself 0.25% over 30 years. That's thousands of dollars you're saving, because I'm not giving you more money up front. It was crazy. But that's what you want to see, is you want to talk to different mortgage agents and also different real estate agents to see. Okay. And one thing I would say is when you try different real estate agents, make sure you see who works right for you, because some of them, like, they want to sell the house that's going to make them the most money. And also real estate agents, they don't care about you. Okay. They want to make the sale. So they'll be like, oh, this is fine. And you may want to sell a house. You're like, look, I want to get, 300,000 for it. Like, oh, 290 is fine. That's good enough. Because for them, their commission difference from 290,000 to 300,000 is nothing. But for you, that's 10,000 extra dollars. So you got to make sure you stand your ground and say, look, these are things that are important to me. Okay. But really, when you're doing that research, also really research the neighborhood, look up the crime statistics, look up the schools. Some places, you're looking up the schools, you're like, why is, I mean, I have friends that live in Memphis, and they're like, one side of the street, it's the same house on both sides of the street, but one side of the street's in Memphis, one side of the street's in Germantown, which has really good public schools. That house is like 40% more. Why is that? Look these things up, because you don't want to get a neighborhood and then find out, oh, that's not protected woodland behind me. That's owned by the city dump. Okay, so you got to do that research beforehand. Okay. Yes. So audio, visual. Keep watching interest rates to remortgage if possible. Yes, because the thing is right now, they'll say it's historically low interest rates, which is true. But what you also have to realize is sometimes they can go down or they can go up. You're like, I don't want it to go up. But if you get it at a time where you get it at a 6 and now it's down to a 3, yes, you should refinance, because it can save you money, and shop around for the different ones that are out there. Oh, Leader Loca, nice. Hey, Mark, greetings from Belize. I love it there. Just finish up my work day on the ship. Have a great one. Enjoy, my friend. I don't know if I don't. Oh, you might be able to have the lobster. Have some rock lobster for me, please. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, Belize is fun. Belize is a fun place. You'll get a chance to go. All right. Next up, How to tell someone bad news. Yes. I've had to tell my kids that their grandpa had cancer. I've been told my grandma died via an email. Not good. You're going to have to tell people bad news, whether it's mom and dad are getting divorced, or it's I'm sick, or you're fired. These are things you have to do. And there's a ways you can do it because it's bad news. There's no way of getting around to saying bad news. It's just bad news. But there's some tips you can have to kind of maybe have better luck with telling bad news. One thing is you want to make sure you're choosing the right time and place. Telling someone over the phone that you're breaking up with them or sending them an email that somebody died. Look, that's not how you do it. Like you tell someone person it's not going to work. It's not working. We're breaking up. Okay. Yeah, I mean, think about it. The stories people get is like, oh yeah, my boyfriend broke up with me via text. Dude, really? Lame. You got to think about these things. So think about the right time, the right place, because you're giving someone people like that's what you'll see is it's usually Friday afternoon is when everyone gets fired because then it's like Friday they got the weekend to move on. Also, if you ever go into a school system, you'll notice that the school systems send out the teachers, like what teachers you get. You'll see the teacher. Sorry, I lost my thing here. Oh, the school system, they'll send out the teachers and the teachers' assignments on a Friday at 4:30, and their offices close at 4. So the parents get it Friday at 4:30, so they have all week to be pissed and mad and send emails, all kinds of stuff. But by Monday, they're kind of like, fine, other kids are in the class, they're a little bit less pissed off. So they get less calls on Monday from upset parents. So it's kind of funny, like choosing the right time can really be effective. But really, it is good to give bad news face to face. Okay. Because when you do it one direction, like a text or an email, those people don't get to react back. And sometimes people need that. All right. Another thing I think is important if you're going to be doing bad news is be prepared. Have an idea how you think they might react. That's why HR, a lot of times, the ones that does the firing because they have an idea of these are the typical ways people react. So if you know there's people that are getting crazy or there's ones that are just, oh no, like you have an idea to be there. And that's why it's important to be empathetic when you're giving bad news. All right. Be that shoulder to cry on, or be that person to get yelled at or whatever, but you're helping to share that with them to help them get over the bad news. And I think one of the most important things you need to realize is you never ever tell people, yeah, bad news, your message got deleted. Yeah. Don't ever say how they feel unless it happened to you. I know for me, my best friend, best man at my wedding, his son died. My first friend that had a kid, like he passed away. He had a heart problem and he died at 1 month old. I got a call from my mom and she's like, Grant died. I'm like, Grant. The only Grant I know is Grant, who's a month old. I was like, yeah, Grant. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, what do I say? Like, I got to call Mike. I got to tell him I'm sorry. What do I tell him? She's like, you can tell him you're sorry, tell him you're there for him, but don't tell him how it feels because you've never had a kid. So you don't know what it feels like to lose one or what it would feel like to lose a kid. And I'm like, you're right. And that's why you can't say, I understand what it's like to be, fired, or if it hasn't happened, you don't know. Because that's where people get upset because they'll be like, you don't know what it feels like because you don't. So you want to be empathetic to as best you can, but don't pretend like you feel their pain because you don't. Because your experiences are different than theirs. Okay. Yes. Arguments among friends and family. It happens. I mean, hey, it's the holidays. I'm sure we're all getting ready for our annual yelling and screaming and ness. It happens. Now, one thing you got to realize is whether you're friends, your family, you're married, it's okay to be angry. That's the big thing. You don't always get along. Like, I don't always agree with my wife. We don't agree on every single thing. That's what I always find funny when, like, well, somebody's husband thinks this and somebody's wife said that. Doesn't mean they think the same way. I mean, anybody that's married knows that. All right. And so you have to realize that sometimes it's okay to be angry. But just remember, though you disagree, you're not enemies. I still have to sleep in this house tonight, and my wife is mad at me. And my kids who get mad at me, they're not going anywhere because you know what? You're not going to sleep on the streets because it's too cold. All right. So you want to make sure you realize that, hey, it's okay to be angry, but we're all on the same team. Okay. Now, I think one thing is important if you are arguing with someone that's close to you, because your friends, they share things, they share intimate details and trust. Don't ever use something that they told you in confidence as a weapon in an argument. That's when trust is broken. And trust, once it breaks, you can try to build it back, but it's never as high. That's why once someone cheats on you once, you never trust them again because it's already been betrayed. So make sure you're not going that far. Now, don't be like, I'm going to give this. No, you got to take control. Okay. Now, one thing I think is also important in marriages is never walk out of the room until you either both agree the argument is over or you've decided to table the problem. We'll talk about it later. Because that's one of the things. If one person walks out, the other person just gets steamy, even more mad. And that gets, like I said, lets it sit and fester. You don't want that. You say, look, okay, we'll agree to disagree. My wife and I, we'll just agree to disagree. That's okay. Yeah, we at least have found a spot where we can agree to disagree. But don't let it fester, because that's where you get yelled at. You get yelled at for, I don't know, you didn't get the mail. Why the hell did you get the mail? And like, why is mom so mad at me for that? There was something else. There's other things in there that didn't get dealt with. So think about that. I think another thing that's really important in any relationship is just acknowledging each other's feelings and perceptions without judgment. My wife, she loves the Cubs. I don't like the Cubs, but you know what? It's okay. You love who you love, baby. It's fine. And so we have these things out there. So let them explain. Tell them more. Ask them. So why do you feel that way? And what have I done? How can I change this? You're upset. What can I do? Because that communication is one of the most important things about relationships, friends, family, whatever. And you have to make sure you keep those communication channels open. And part of that is just listening. Okay, so hopefully that can help you get through your arguments on the holidays when you're stuck at home for 4 weeks till you come back next semester. Okay, because I'll be honest with you, arguments and bad news and all kinds of stuff. Life isn't fair. The world isn't fair. I mean, half of you, there's 23 watching right now, so 12 of you will get cancer and 11 of you will get divorced. I mean, that's just statistics. Bad things happen, Your wife, husband, they'll leave you. I mean, how many of you have divorced parents? It happens. And what's sad is your friends will choose sides. They might not want to choose sides, but you will make it so that it seems like they chose sides. And that's kind of hard. You'll be alone. My friends all went with her, not me, or him and not me. Those things happen. Your parents pass away, And what sucks is when you want to be there with your family and your siblings, you're going to end up fighting over who gets what. That's why you need to tell your parents to make sure they update their will and their estate planning, because that will be one of the worst things ever. That has ruined a lot of families right there, is the fight over. So make sure those things are taken care of. You're not going to get the job you want, and you're going to get fired from a job you love, though you did nothing wrong. These things happen. But what happens, you have to realize is life isn't fair, but you have to go on. You got to pick yourself up. Remember, no one's out there. Your mom might be helping you get up, but your mom might have passed away. You got to pick yourself up off the ground. You got to get back to work. You know what? I lose my job. I still got to feed my kids. I got to keep going. I can't sit and wallow in my own, oh, woe is me. I'm no longer at one of the best business schools in the world. No, you got to get back on there, and you got to hope for that better tomorrow and have hope. Because yes, bad things happen, but you know what? Tomorrow's another day. You know what's great about tomorrow? It can always be better. Because my one thing I want you all to know, going out from this year at college, and whether it's your 4th year finishing up or you're a freshman taking this course, look, just being happy is the best thing you can do for yourself, mentally, for your heart, for your health, for everything. Because really, there's only one person you have to be happy with, and that's you. There's only one person you have to look in the mirror, and that's you. I know we all feel like we got to be what our mom wants us to be, or what our dad wants us to be, or what our grandparents want us to be, or our friends want us to be. But in honesty, in the mornings, are your parents looking in the mirror with you? Hopefully not. That would be weird. But they're not. You need to make sure you're figuring out what's right for you. So don't worry about what they're thinking. You make yourself happy first, and then you can make other people happy. That's what it is. So do what you want. The job, the career, the hobbies. What's fun for you, do it. Don't feel upset when people are like, oh, well, you do that. That's weird. No, that's my jam, dude. That's my jam. Don't let people try to put you down, because you control your happiness. And that's what's great, because if you get that and you get the job you love, it's not a job. Like, I love teaching. Like, I never feel like I'm going to work. I'm going to meet people. I'm going to talk. I'm going to spend time with my students. I love it. That's why it's not a job. It's not a career. It's just fun. And so if you can get that passion with your job, you don't have to make the most money in the world if you're happy. Because I have friends that make a lot of money and hate their lives. You know? So find something. I mean, you got to pay the bills, let's be honest. But like, find something that really gets you going every day, and that'll make you the happiest thing ever. So just being happy is the best I can ask for. And really, I want you all to have a great life. I want you to live your dreams. And I don't want anybody to let you stop. I don't want anybody to try to stop you. Don't let people stop you, because people will they'll put roadblocks up there like, no, you can't go through this. You find your own way. Okay? You do that. All right. And honestly, as we finish up, I have one homework assignment for you. There's only one homework assignment I have, and that is have a great life. And whatever that life is, do it. If it's being a fat guy with 10 kids running around you, God bless you and do it. If it's living alone and having 5 cats and running a CEO and being a CEO and running a Fortune 500, do it. I would be so happy for you. So whenever you see me around in the future, whether it's at an alumni event or you're on the campus, come say hi and let me know if you're doing that homework assignment right. All right. So I wish you all the best. Please have a great life, whatever that is to you. That's my one assignment I have for you all. I wish you all a fantastic break. I know it's been a crazy semester. The last 3, 4, or 5 semesters, last year and a half have been the most stressful, cruddiest everything. But we're getting through, and we're all going to be happy again. So be happy, enjoy your lives, and I wish you all a fantastic break, and good luck for everyone that needs to take your exams and your projects and finish those things up. And I love you all, and thank you for a great semester, and I will be out of here. Bye, Gabe. Bye, Claire. Bye, Michelle. You all be great, and I will see you around. And here, so my students, if you don't know, this is, now do you recognize me? Okay, so we have that. Love you all. Bye, Will. Be all good. See you later.